Hey everybody, Eric Songer here with you with the latest episode of Second Floor Therapy. It's our weekly podcast where we take a look at middle school education with a little emphasis on music education because that's what I do. And I am a teacher at Chaska Middle School West here in Chaska, Minnesota. And every week in the summer, or almost every week, I've been doing one of these podcasts on middle school education. And starting in September, we'll be going back to my weekly podcast about what's happening in our music program at Chaska Middle School West. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So today I'm here with you. I'm going to talk about this really cool book I've been reading called Wired to Create by Scott Barry Kaufman and Carolyn Gregory. And these two have put together this wonderful book. Now this was written a while ago, but some of the great things in here are just awesome. And one of the things I'm going to do a two-part podcast on the 10 things that highly creative people do differently, and just talk a little bit from my own experience about each of those 10 things, and then talk about what I feel are important about these as well. So I'm looking forward to going through these with you, and I'll make this kind of brief, but as I go through them, I just encourage you to kind of think about them yourself, and think about things that you do, and think about things that you can do in these areas to get better. And then also as a parent or a teacher, things that you can relay to your kids and to your students about these things. So I'm going to do the first 5 today, and then we'll try to do the next 5 next week. So starting with number 1, imaginative play. And I think about when I was a kid, I always loved telling this story. I was huge into the pop music charts. I loved listening to American Top 40 with Casey Kasem. And after I would listen to the Top 40 every weekend, I would write a magazine, a 16-page magazine about the different artists and songs and the charts, and talk about the statistics, and just go through everything about the music. And I loved doing it. It was awesome. And I would make this magazine every week and bring it to school, show all my friends. And when I was in 6th grade, all I wanted was a copy machine for Christmas, so I would mass produce it and hand it out. I should have sold it. I don't know what I was thinking. But I did this all the way through about the middle of 10th grade, and so I have about 250 issues of this magazine called Rocket, and it's from like 1984 through the end of 1988. And there's just some super cool things when I look back at this magazine, and I'm like, wow, there's some. First of all, it's very imaginative. It's very creative, and it's something that helped me find my place as a middle school kid. So when I think about now I have 2 kids, and I like to watch them do their imaginative play. And even my son, who is going into 8th grade, has some really cool things that he does. And I think that's so important in developing your creativity. And I think in today's day and age, we have too many kids that are getting way overscheduled. They are in a sport or an activity many, many hours a week, after school, on the weekends. In the summer, they're constantly doing camps and other activities, and they just don't have that time to just be creative and be imaginative and to come up with their own games and their own activities and their own make-believe worlds, much like we do when we have kids that are, 2, 3 years old. They come up with their own things, and we need to do that at any age, even as adults. This book is not just about kids. We need to be imaginative with our lives and come up with, have some time where we just, come up with some fun things that, can inspire thoughts and ideas for us to better our lives and the lives of people around us. So that's number 1 on the list of 10 things that creative people do differently. Number 2 is passion. And this is huge. I talk about passion a lot as a teacher. I always tell kids, they'll ask me, how much should I practice, Mr. Songer? And, the stock answer is, well, you should practice an hour a week. You should practice the music that you need to prepare for your concert or your playing test and get it up to the right level. And not that stuff is wrong. It's, it's on the mark. But then I always say, but if you have a passion for music, if you really want to get better and you want to pursue this as far as you can, you should be practicing a lot. You should be practicing every day. You should be practicing for half hour a day, an hour a day. You should be, not to the point of being unhealthy and like getting to that point where you don't have time for that imaginative play and your friends and your parents and stuff like that. But you should have that drive and really go for it. You know, when I got into to UW Eau Claire as a freshman, I did not really understand the passion that I needed to get better as a musician. I had a passion for music. I loved music, but I didn't really understand that if I was going to become really good at this, I needed to spend not just an hour a day doing it. I needed to immerse myself in it. And I think a lot of times when people go to college, I think that that is a kind of a game changer where you're like, wow, I need to put a lot more time into this. So that was huge, and I give a lot of thanks to the people in my freshman year who helped me through that first year and kind of taught me either through just verbally stating it to me or by example of how much time I needed to put in. And I remember starting to get up at 5:30 in the morning so I could get down to the music building to practice for 2 hours before my first class. I remember if I had a class that ended at 10:50 and another one that started at 11, I'd literally run up to a practice room and practice for like 7 minutes and then run to class because every minute counted. I remember, not that this was healthy, but skipping meals to practice and schedule, sectionals and things like that. I would do everything I can to just to play more. So just having that passion, which led to the drive to get better, I think that's huge. Number three, and I love this one, daydreaming. A lot of times as a teacher, I'll look at in my classroom and I have kids that aren't paying attention. They're daydreaming. And this book, tells us, don't daydream to the point where you're missing important things at school or at work. But it's okay to daydream. It's okay to just have some moments when you're sitting at home, maybe watching TV or whatever, looking up a video on YouTube, and your mind just wanders somewhere because that's when great ideas happen. This book actually listed two things that I do that were like justification of why I do them. Number one, that actually has much more value than just this, but is taking walks. I take walks every day, and sometimes I'll take a walk that's like 7 or 8 miles long. Usually it's closer to like between 3 to 5, but that's time for me to be in nature. And it actually says, be in nature. Don't just walk around a mall or a track or something inside a gym or something, but actually get outside, whether it's, 100 degrees or 20 below zero, get outside and be around nature and let your mind just drift. And you will come up with creative ideas when you do that enough. And then the other one, which I think is a little bit funnier because I've said this for years, is in the shower. Maybe TMI here, but I do some of my best thinking in the shower because it's like a break from whatever you're doing that day. In the morning, it's a great way to start the day, to be thinking about what's coming, what can you do in this day to make it better. At the end of the day or after work or after a workout, like after I get done walking, for 6 miles, I'm going to come and take a shower. And so it just continues that thought process. And so uh, it's great. It's great that the book mentioned those two things, but just letting your mind drift and then seeing what happens. I think the book had a quote something like, we have more creative thinking in the shower than we do at work. And so, maybe that's justification for maybe spending more time at home and less time at work, especially if it's going to be showering or walking. So they mentioned some other things too. Another one was meditating too, which is something that I could probably do some more of, and all the benefits from that. Okay, got two more. Number four, solitude. It's funny. I always say I'm an introvert, and a lot of people are taken aback by that because I'm a teacher, I'm a musician. When I get on stage, I can do a pretty good job of taking on the persona of somebody who is the opposite of an introvert. But I truly am somebody who gets charged up by being alone. If I'm in a situation with a lot of people, I don't like that as much. It's going to have to be like really good friends if I'm going to be in a room of more than like four people and not like get tired really quick. And even if it's really good friends, I tend to be like, oh boy, this is a little much for me. So I love the time to be alone and to recharge. And whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, that's really important time that creative people really value. Um, Again, when you're in a solitude kind of position, you have a chance just to think about life, think about, let your mind daydream. Put up some imaginative situations, and I think that's wonderful. And we all need that. Again, it doesn't matter if you're somebody who loves to be alone or somebody that really wants to be around people. Some of the most creative people in our history have been people that have put themselves in places of solitude to write, to journal, to create music, to do artwork, to dance, to do any kind of creative activity. So that's number four. And the last one I'm going to talk about today, and again, there's five more that I'll do next time, but is intuition. And this is of the five I find to be the trickiest. And I think the book too. The book did a lot of scientific examples of how our brain works, and some of the chemicals in our body, and things that help us with some of these things. And intuition is an interesting one. An interesting part of our brain that is able to or even our gut. I don't think it was in this book, but I heard that our body thinks with in three different places. Obviously, our brain, but then also our heart and our gut. And we have that saying, I have a gut feeling that this is right, and that's intuition. So sometimes, when I am teaching, I think about like students, and how you can see them about ready to make the wrong decision, and you ask yourself, why are they about to make this wrong decision? And I think intuition just hasn't developed in their brains yet, and I think that's very true. And the book kind of talks about that development of your brain to be intuitive. And I think another part of intuition is setting yourself up for it. There's another quote in this book about something about um, you know the the prepared mind is the one that's ready to be creative, to be inspired. And so we need to prepare our minds. We need to be smarter. We need to be well versed in what we're doing. We need to be ready for those moments where we need the intuition, where it's being called upon, where we need to be like, okay, there's this fork in the road. Which way are we going to go? And you need to be ready. You need to have the smarts for that to make the right decision. So, and sometimes it's just a gut feeling. So intuition, it's of these five, it's the hardest one for me to really explain here. But I think everyone gets what it is, and it's important, I think, just for intuition to study up, be prepared for those situations, and then learn. I think the last thing I would say is learn from those experiences. So when you do make the wrong decision, don't make it again. Be like, okay, I screwed this up. I can't do it that way again. So, all right. So there we go. So imaginative play, passion, daydreaming, solitude, and intuition are the first five of the 10 things that creative people do differently. And I'm going to do the next five next time. Now, I might not do a podcast next week because I'm going to be on vacation, so I might take a week off. But the next time I do a podcast, I'll make sure to get to these last five. And that will probably be our last second floor therapy session for the summer. And then I'll get back into the what's happening in the Chaska Middle School West Band Department. And they'll be right here on my YouTube channel. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, you can check out my other podcast called The Hits Don't Stop. It's on iTunes, and it's a monthly look back at a top 40 chart from this month in history, from the 80s or 90s, and a look at what those artists are doing now and what they've done since their big hit songs, 25, 30 years ago. So check it out. It's called The Hits Don't Stop, and it's on iTunes. So, hey, everyone, have a great week. Thanks so much for joining me again. It's always a pleasure to do these podcasts. And I'm really excited that people are joining me and giving me feedback on these. And feel free to give me some feedback on Twitter. I'm at Eric Songer, and my email is songer@songerstudio.com. Have a good one, everyone.